Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this afternoon's Hesston College Athletic Hall of Fame induction. It's our honor to host you here, and thanks for being a part of the broader homecoming weekend here at Hesston College. My name is Andrew Sharp. I'm one of the assistant athletic directors here at Hesston. Last year, under the leadership of our athletic director, Brian Kerr, Brian really initiated the Hall of Fame here. It was his desire to get it started and get it started soon. So that's what we did last year. When we first started thinking about, well, okay, who's the criteria, who gets in, it was clear that there was a list of what I would call kind of no-brainers. And we couldn't have everybody in the inaugural year, so we are pleased to have another group of what we would consider sort of no-brainers, Hall of Famers here at Hesston College. We have some administrators, we have some coaches, we have some former players. I guess Joel Kaufman would be all three of those, wouldn't he? Yeah. So these folks have meant so much to the institution, not just for their teams, but to the institution. They've represented Hesston College very well and continue to represent Hesston very well. So thanks for coming. I will pass it on to Jerry Sieber, a Hall of Famer himself. He will have our first introduction and we'll proceed accordingly. Thanks for being here.
Well, it's nice to be here. I've been here a few times before, believe it or not. And I consider it a great honor to introduce Jim Sieber. Jim was a cousin, as you maybe saw in the program, and he's unable to be here today. He's retired and living in the Italian Alps near Austria. So, but anyway, I'll try to share. It's been quite a few years since I've seen him, but we did email back and forth, and I'll try to share some things about Jim and give you an idea of the kind of athlete he was and the kind of person that he was. Jim grew up in Argentina, South America. His parents were Mennonite missionaries there. And so he played at Hesston in the fall of '66 and '67. Hesston started their soccer program in the fall of '63. And he grew up honing his skills in the tough, rough, and tumble streets of Argentina. And he didn't have a lot of, well, he was invited to play on a semi-professional soccer team when he was 13 years old, but his parents told him that he couldn't play on Sunday. But when Jim was at Hesston those 2 years, I think the record was about 19 wins and 2 losses. And it's probably the 2 losses I want to talk a little bit more about here. Jim describes that, and I'll add to it as well. One of his best memories was going to Final Four national tournament, which was in New York. And he said the first game caught us off guard because they played a high caliber team, a higher caliber team than they had been playing during the regular season. And so they lost the first game. The second game is kind of, it's noteworthy. They actually played very well in the second game, and they were tied and they went into overtimes, and now we have procedures for breaking ties in the overtime that back then they did. So they kept playing and kept playing and kept playing, and James said it was a battle of attrition. And what I've heard secondhand is that when they were playing the game for third and fourth place, they were playing on a field that was adjacent to where they were playing the championship game. And what I understand was it would have been very late in the game. Some of the Hesston players heard a whistle that came from the championship field, and they stopped temporarily, thinking it was a time to, not realizing it wasn't the official on their field. And so the goal, maybe, again, second-handed, was a result of Hesston being their attention was taken away because of the field where the championship game was played. Another highlight, he said, was playing an overtime win over Goshen College. And I think that was played at Goshen College, if I remember right. Well, I should first of all say that Jim was a two-time All-American. I think one of the remarkable things about his stats were, when he was here, I think he only played about 21 games, and he ended up being the Hesston College career scoring leader, and there's two ways to do that. One is goals, and one is a combination of goals and assists. He ended up with 95 goals and 29 assists for a total of 94 offensive points. But I think the remarkable thing about that is that all the other teams, all the other individuals that have some records, offensive records, were playing 20, 22 games a year, whereas James' stats were only accumulated in just playing 10 games, about 10 or 11 games in 2 years. James did go to EMU after he played at Hesston, Eastern Mennonite University. I found James, although our lives didn't intersect as much as I really wish now they would have, but James was a very caring, very grounded, very humble sort of a person. He was a social activist. He had a worldview, obviously, and he did play some semi-pro soccer in Argentina and the United States in his adult life. And he spent about 25 years of his adult life. He lived in Indianapolis, Indiana, and he played soccer there and also coached youth soccer. And should I tell him what I'm supposed to do here?
If you want.
Well, I've got some remarks from James.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to share a few remarks that Jim Sieber passed on to me here just recently, and some of the stuff was information that I even wasn't aware of. Jim said that I'm overwhelmed by this Hesston College Athletics Hall of Fame recognition for my contribution to Hesston College soccer. He said, I regret not being here personally since I'm living in Italy, but the next best is the honor to have my cousin Jerry accept the award on my behalf. My Hesston experience overall has been a crucial lifetime milestone. Coming from my upbringing in an isolated town in rural Argentina, he moved there when he was 10 months old. Uh, uh, he welcomed and thrived in the caring, intimate atmosphere offered at Hesston College in general and specifically in his soccer experience. Another note here that he shared is the 2 years at Hesston shaped my life specifically through soccer. It was a foot in the door which opened up a world of opportunities. Not only did it help me adjust and feel accepted, contributing to the spirit on campus, but it then continued throughout life as an anchor compelled to stay physically fit and socially active to this day. And he shared a lot more, but well, just a couple other comments. He said one of the things not directly related to soccer that left an unforgettable imprint on him was a spectacular array of falling stars during a team trip in the Kansas Plains. And just as important as his scoring records, he said, was our intangible team strength derived through camaraderie and cohesion. I couldn't have done it without them. Only together did we achieve this memorable experience. And and I wish some of James' teammates could be here to share this, but anyway, I want to say thank you, and it's an honor to represent my cousin Jim Seaver here with this award.
My name's Brian Kerr. I had the pleasure of coaching Mika Matsuda, a 2017 graduate. She came to Hesston College through the Bridge soccer program in Japan. It's a program where Japanese players travel to the United States as a team and play against colleges in the spring of the year. We've had 11 players here at Hesston College through this program, including Rena, who's on our current team. Mika is the all-time points leader. She had 50 assists and 34 goals. The 34 goals is second on the list. The 50 assists is first, and the second person has 18. So she was a midfielder who could really set things up. There are three things that I will remember about Mika. Number one, she was a great student. She came to Hesston with, and she would say to you, I don't speak English well. And I would look at her worksheets and her textbooks, and she translated everything into Japanese in order to understand it. So think about reading your textbook, getting your translator out and translating it into Japanese. But she was a great student and spent a lot of time with that. She was also a hard worker in games and practice. Her work rate in games, like she never stopped running, and she was always practicing. In fact, we changed one of the things we did. Instead of having balls in bags, every player had one ball in their bag because I got tired of her coming and asking to borrow the ball bag. This way she could, when she wanted to work on her own, she would just get a few other players and they would go out and practice. And the other thing I would say about Mika is that she was a great teammate. Players loved her. She, on breaks from school, Christmas break or spring break, she would go home with teammates. Teammates went to Japan to visit her. So those three things I will remember. We have a video of Mika talking to us. Mika is now married. Her and her husband work in a Buddhist temple. They just had their first daughter last month. And we will hear from Mika.
Thank you for inviting me to this ceremony. I am honored to accept this wonderful award. I regret that I cannot participate in the ceremony in person. I am grateful for giving me a chance to play soccer as a Hesston soccer player. I started playing soccer in elementary school and belonged to a team that is considered strong in Japan. But the days at Hesston was the hardest of all. I couldn't speak English well, but teammates were very kind and made me laugh a lot. I felt a strong determination that I would not lose to anyone in soccer and that I would lead my team to victory. I have a lot of good memories. Enjoyed barbecue after home games, doing homework and studying for exam in the car during the long distance travel for away games, and the teammates practiced with me late night. I was saved by them not only on the pitch but also in school life. After college, I back to Japan and began working. I married a monk 2 years ago. I quit my job and started helping the temple. Last month, I gave birth to our first child, a girl, and I am now enjoying every day. Playing soccer and studying in the United States has made me think about my home country, Japan, and love it even more. Thank you very much again for receiving such a wonderful award. I experienced at Hesston. All experience at Hesston are irreplaceable moments in my life. What I want to say to the Hesston student is that working hard can change people's actions and save you. Although I am far away, I pray for a bright future for you at Hesston from Japan. Thank you.
I'm introducing Liz Sowers. Liz played for me. I forget the years now. Sarah, what were those years? 2004 to 2006? Okay. I've known Liz Sowers all her life. Liz is the same age as my daughter Sarah, and they kind of grew up together. So I've always been kind of aware of Liz. And as a high schooler, Liz played in a system where she was only allowed to shoot the ball about around 4 feet. And she played with her back to the bucket solely. And I recruited her and was fortunate enough to get her to sign a letter of intent and come to Hesston College. And I quickly realized that Liz was a phenomenal shooter, a three-point shooter. And so we moved her out away from the basket, or actually Liz kind of played wherever she wanted to play in our system. And our offense revolved around her. And she broke all the three-point scoring records at Hesston College, and at the end of her career was the all-time career leading scorer. Liz was one of the most competitive players I have ever coached, except maybe for Lisa sitting over here. An example of that would be a game against Johnson County Community College in the region playoffs. Late in the game, I'm not quite sure how I found out because I don't usually keep track of these kinds of things. I realized she was close to breaking the school single game scoring record. So I called a timeout, and we as a team agreed that nobody was going to shoot the ball from here to the end of the game except for Liz. And we're going to try to get her the basketball. Well, Johnson County soon figured out what we were trying to do, and so they kept trying to do things to keep her from getting the basketball. And one of the things they did at one point late in the game, they had the ball out of bounds under their basket, and instead of inbounding in their half court, they threw the ball clear to the other end of the court, thinking that they would easily inbound the basketball there and walk the ball up the floor and waste a little more time and keep Liz from breaking the scoring record. Well, Liz, being the competitor that she was, turned and ran and followed the ball, and they threw it so far that it almost went out of bounds, and the Johnson County player saved it back into Liz, who had followed it, and turned around and then fouled Liz in the process of her shooting a layup. So she got 3 points out of that and ended up breaking the score record. Liz was a joy to coach. She did everything I ever asked her to do. She was creative and a wonderful person. In addition to being a good player, she was a great teammate. And it's my pleasure to introduce her in this way and to have been her coach.
Thank you everyone for being here. My name's Liz Sowers, and I'm really sad that I can't be there in person, but I wanted to take some time to talk about my experience at Hesston and what that meant to me and still means to me today. Joel Kaufman, first of all, I want to thank Joel for everything that he's done as a coach, and me being a coach now has instilled in me so many attributes that I bring forward to my team, and I wouldn't be anywhere without him. And every time I write my favorite coach on any little slip of paper, it's always Joel Kaufman that comes to mind. And I know in the crowd there is the women's basketball team at Hesston, and so I want to give a special shout out to you guys. I don't think that you understand the journey that you are on or about to be on, or wherever you're at in that journey. I hope that you enjoy it. When I look back on my time at Hesston, I don't think about the points. I don't think about the scores. I don't think about the minutes played. I think about everything in between every single game, the trips, the bus rides, when Joel would make us turn off the music and just talk. And it's those things that you remember most. You will not remember how many minutes you played in the game. You will not remember how many points you scored, but you will remember everything within those moments. And that is the best part. And, you know, growing up in Hesston and my mom being a huge part of Hesston College, my grandpa being, you know, the president and the pastor, I kind of felt obligated to go to Hesston for a little bit. And when I got to Hesston, it was the best choice or obligation, I guess you could say, that I ever made, and I would not change it for a second. It became a family, it became my home, and the journey that I was on for those 2 years, I will remember for the rest of my life. Like I said, it's not the points or the stats that I remember. It is the community and the family that surrounds you at Hesston College that made it truly special to me and something that I will remember. So being inducted into the Hall of Fame is an honor. I remember my dad constantly talking about Hall of Fame and needing a Hall of Fame, and I always thought, well, he only just, you know, he wants me to be in there. But I do know that, you know, he's looking down and really proud of everything that Hesston College has done and continues to do, and just truly thankful for the opportunity.
Hello, my name's Forrest Miller. I work in the development office here at Hesston College. I coached Lark softball from 1998 to 2005, and it's my pleasure today to introduce Julie Steiner-Kozel, Hesston College class of 2001, to the Hesston College Lark Athletic Hall of Fame. Julie played here the 2000 and 2001 seasons. Just a little bit about a recruiting story about Julie. She was a part of my first recruiting class, and so it was a big deal for me. She attended Central Christian High School in Kidron, Ohio, and that's where she still lives. I remember the day she told me, it was a spring evening. I talked to her on the phone, and she told me she was coming to Hesston College. I remember hanging up the phone, and I think literally was jumping up and down for joy. I was that excited to have her a part of my team. She was really the cornerstone of a pretty good recruiting class of 11 recruits that year. She came in as a catcher. During her Hesston College career, she caught and also played some shortstop for us. A little bit about her stats. Julie is second place all-time on the Hesston College career batting average list. Her career batting average is .466. second only to Jesse Miranda's 467, 1 point, and it's 1 point or less depending on who you ask. So two very, very good batting averages there. Her freshman batting average was 472, sophomore batting average 461, so very consistent over 2 seasons. In fact, the 2001 softball season that she played her sophomore year, the 2001 team still holds the highest team batting average record at Hesston College at 372. So she was a hitting leader on that team, and during her 2 years at Hesston College, our record for those 2 years was 40 wins and 23 losses. So just a couple of really good successful seasons there. Julie was named her sophomore year to the National Junior College Athletic Association Division III All-American softball team as a sophomore. And I still have her certificate to prove that. So I dug this out of my files yesterday, and we'll probably give that to her afterwards. Julie was really a student of the game, just a combination of being a very excellent contact hitter, but also had a lot of power, very, very quick bat speed. I would also say about Julie's skills is that she did the best against the best teams that we competed against. She rose to the occasion and just played really well against those teams. Coming out of high school, like I said, she was primarily a catcher. She learned a new position here at Hesston. She played a lot of shortstop. And we'll talk about the reasons why that was later. Shortstop obviously is not an easy position to learn, and she picked it up and was just fantastic for us. I would say aside from the statistics that Julie has, what tends to separate a lot of great players and people are intangible qualities, and I think all of us would say that about the athletes that we're introducing today. Julie was a team leader. She made her teammates better. She made me a better coach. I learned a great deal from her during her 2 years at Hesston. During her senior year at at Central Christian, she tore her ACL in a softball injury, and that really could have forced her from the game, but it didn't. She worked hard to come back from that really tough injury, so that shows a lot of resilience to me. And so that was one of the reasons, too, why she didn't catch as much here at Hesston, is because of just the knee injury and the recovery of that. And so we put her at shortstop. Julie also kept things pretty light for our team off the field. She always seemed to be at the center of laughter, pranks, and fun. And I'm not going to mention the details of some of the crazy things that I witnessed during my years coaching her, but they were very memorable times for us, and it was just a lot of fun and memorable coaching here at Hesston College. I'm so glad she chose Hesston. So please join me in welcoming Julie Steiner-Kozel, class of 2001, to the Hesston College Lark Hall of Fame.
Well, now that Forrest, am I allowed to call you Woody? That's what we called you as a team. We called you Woody, so that's what his name is to me. He said everything I was going to say, so that makes this a lot shorter for you guys. Like he mentioned, I currently live in Ohio. My husband and my daughter are here with me today, Alex and Micah, and my other 2 children, Tatiana and Dagnes, are back home. One had a soccer game and one has class. After graduating here at Hesston, I completed my BFA at George Mason in Fairfax, and when I was finished with school, my husband and Alex and I left for a 1-year term at Stansbury's Children's Home and Daycare in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Our 1-year commitment stretched to 14 years, and it was in the end of 2019 that our family of 5 moved to live in the U.S. for the first time. Like he said, I'm the softball coach at Central Christian School where my kids attend, and I also help with the volleyball program coaching the freshman girls team, and they were really adamant that I mention them in this speech, so there you go, girls. Preparing to share, I was remembering the literature class I took with Andrea Krauss that I really loved here at Hesston, and the ridiculous runaround it would take for me to complete a writing assignment and get it to class on time. I would sit down to write the night before and get distracted by anyone and everyone and everything that walked past my room, which happens quite a bit in a dorm. Eventually, I realized I could go to sleep if there were people, even when there were people around, and so that was my plan. I'd go to bed around 10 and then wake up at 6 a.m. when no one else was awake, because I literally could not do it with a human soul walking past. Write a 2-page essay on the reading we'd done, get dressed as fast as I could, rush my little floppy disk over to the computer lab, pray that I would be able to get the stupid computer to print, and usually had the warm paper in my hand with about 5 minutes to get to class. This isn't a best practice or good advice or any of that stuff, but it worked for me. It's been amazing to be back in this place after 23 years. Woody, you specifically spent a lot of time and energy convincing me and my teammates that this was the place we should be. There were phone calls and conversations and letters in the mail almost every week. Speaking of letters, I also brought a prop. I found one in storage and brought it with me, a little bit of physical evidence to support my claims. I evidently was waxing poetic about looking for a sign as to what I should do, and you took it upon yourself to make sure I got one. So this is my sign that says, Julie's sign, come to Hesston College and play softball for Forrest Miller. I listened. Now I have to find my place. In the end, what I really wanted to do was keep playing softball, and Hesston became my best option to do that. Once I got here, I loved so many other elements of the school outside of just softball, but that was the main thing that brought me here. It's an honor to be here today, surrounded by past and present talented coaches and athletes who also found that Hesston gives that opportunity to keep playing. Obviously, so much has changed here at the school in 23 years, but it's wonderful to see the college as it transforms and to see so many student athletes here now. The memories and experiences that stick in my head from Hesston softball don't necessarily all fit into a simple or easy narrative to follow. Things like feeling the little chunks of clay stinging our legs as it was whipped off the infield by the Kansas winds, but still practicing, obviously. Being encouraged and mentored by my sophomore teammates my freshman year. Dancing to Missy Elliott in the outfield during warm-ups. Having the most positive, cheery assistant coaches on the planet in Mike and Becky. Battling back and forth with Heidi Collins for home runs and knowing full well that she was going to take me out in the end. Pushing each other to be better. For whatever reason, I remember stepping into the batter's box during a game at Hutch, but I don't even remember what happens at the at-bat. All I remember is stepping into the batting box. Being gently put in my place by my coach, and still to this day remembering the words that he said, knowing that there was thought and intention put into that conversation ahead of time. And those are private for me. Not going to say what he said. The way our team grieved with our coach when his brother George died in a tragic accident during our season, and the way that affected us as a team. And I have a picture in my mind of what the field looked like from home plate at Nationals in Maryland. Again, it's like a snapshot. I don't have much more beyond that. Even though the memories are sporadic and most of the games and plays blur together over time, what I do carry with me is a sense of what my time here was like. It's a sense that Hesston College softball was a positive experience. That general feeling of fondness means the positive elements outweigh the difficult elements. It's a sense that relationships were meaningful and formative. It's a deep-seated sense of gratitude for being able to play more of the game I loved and playing it with people I loved here at Hesston College. Thank you to Hesston College Athletics for this recognition of the hard work and the commitment I personally put into this game and the success it brought, and for the opportunity to play at this school. Thanks to my husband, who during my time at Hesston was my boyfriend from 24 hours away and who flew out here during my sophomore year to ask me to be his wife. Thanks to my parents, Mark and Karen Steiner, and their lifelong commitment to Christian education and for making it possible for me to attend Hesston. I want to share the honor with my 2000 and 2001 teammates who made playing together competitive and hilarious. The more things I do and the more people I work with, I appreciate how we got along and know those kinds of teams don't happen often. Finally, I want to honor my coach, Forrest Miller, by expressing my gratitude for his commitment to our team and to us as individuals. Thank you for your example and your integrity as a coach. Thank you on a personal level for helping me make the decision to come to Hesston and the way that decision impacted me and the direction of my life. Thank you very much.
Julie used to cut my hair in college. She was really good at that too. Yes, donation. Well, good afternoon. My name is Mark Trout, and I'm from Sherwood, North Dakota, a very small town on the Canadian border. And I've been given the incredible honor and privilege to be able to introduce the next inductee into the Hesston College Athletics Hall of Fame, Art Mullet. I'm a 2001 Hesston College graduate and worked as an admissions counselor and as one of Art's assistant coaches from 2007 to 2010. Art. That name elicits an expansive amount of emotions in me. Some of my most cherished memories, a tremendous amount of gratitude, and an awareness that my life was changed forever by the opportunity this man gave me. In order to properly introduce Art, I find it necessary to tell you a little bit about my story, how I ended up at Hesston College, and the impact that Art has had on my life. My story represents just one of hundreds, if not thousands, of stories of the journeys of student athletes that were impacted by Art's 30-year tenure in service at Hesston College. My relationship with Art goes back a little over 25 years. And if I'm completely honest, as I stated earlier, my relationship with Art is one that changed my life forever in the most amazing of ways and in ways I could have never imagined. I would come to learn as an 18-year-old that we are meant to hold on to the dreams and plans in our life with an open hand. Oftentimes, God's plan for our life is much greater than we could ask for or imagine. And this is a lesson I learned here at Hesston College. I grew up in the middle of nowhere on the North Dakota prairie. Farmland as far as you can see, northern lights as bright as you can imagine, and cold that takes your breath away in the wintertime. I was a farm kid. I had a dream of playing college baseball, but probably more importantly, being able to play down south somewhere, where it's warm and the baseball season is a little longer than a month or so in the springtime. Baseball was often seen as an afterthought sport to my peers, but for me, baseball was my life. I was not heavily recruited whatsoever, no huge surprise considering where I was from, and as my senior year of high school wound closer to the end, it didn't look like my dream of playing college baseball down south would come true. I verbally committed to a junior college an hour away from home with no idea of what God had in store. And then one day, everything changed, I guess just like Julie, when I received a handwritten note on Hesston College letterhead that simply said, "Hey Mark, I heard you're a catcher. I need a catcher for next season, and I'd like you and your family to come down and visit." It was signed Art Mullet. It was no mystery that I lived in the middle of nowhere, but how this coach named Art had heard of me was an absolute shock. "What do you mean you heard that I was a catcher and you'd like me to come down and visit?" His note made it sound like he really wanted me, that he believed in me. I was over the moon excited. Was this what I had dreamed of? But where was Hesston College, and what was Hesston College? Never heard of this place in my life. I found out it was in Kansas, 1,000 miles away from home. I also found out it was a Christian two-year college associated with the Mennonite church. Now, what in the world is a Mennonite? That was a word I had never heard before in my life, and I had to look it up in the dictionary. What I found when I visited Hesston College for the first time was one of the most welcoming and friendly environments I had ever experienced. A beautiful campus, a diverse student body, awesome facilities, a manicured baseball field, and a place that truly felt like home. From the very beginning when I first met Art, I felt like he believed in me. He'd never seen me play, he hadn't dissected any of my game film or looked at any analytics, but somehow he knew I would become a successful student athlete at Hesston College. He somehow knew that an experience at Hesston College would change my life. My parents believed in me, I believed in my abilities, but I hadn't had a coach believe in me the way that Art did. So to say that my 2 years of playing baseball for Art were absolutely incredible is an understatement. They truly were two of the best years of my life. I had a successful career at Hesston College, and Art was right about the fact he needed a catcher. He let me catch 85 games in 2 years. I made lifelong friends from all over the world and learned lifelong lessons here at Hesston. I found what a relationship with God is all about at Hesston College. I learned from Art how to lead by example, about commitment and hard work, how to be a man of character and integrity, and how to not shy away from one's faith, but rather how to keep it at the forefront. In the years since I left Hesston College after coaching with Art, I've lost both my parents. And so the relationships that I've had with coaches, mentors, bosses, people I admire, have grown that much more important to me in recent years. And my relationship with Art is cherished near the top of that list. Whenever my boys pick up a bat or a ball, Art is usually one of the first people I think of. So on behalf of the countless amount of student athletes at Hesston College whose lives you impacted during your 30-year tenure, I say thank you. Well done, good and faithful servant. Thank you for taking a chance on a farm kid from North Dakota, for believing in me, empowering me, and helping me to become the person, husband, father, and farmer that I am today. Art, welcome to the Hesston College Athletics Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Mark. This reminds me a little bit of a funeral. People saying a lot of nice things about you, mostly exaggerated. But we get to hear it, which is a good part. I read a book recently called Tale of the Backup Catcher. Maybe some of you have read it, by Tim Brown. And the gist of the book is what it takes for a player to be on the bench all the time. The main character in the book is Eric Kratz, who many of you may have heard of. Came from a Mennonite family in Pennsylvania, went to Christopher Dock High School, was recruited to play at EMU, and then was drafted and played 11 years, I think, in the major leagues for 14 different teams, always as the backup catcher. But one of Eric's best friends when he was at EMU was Mike Martin. Mike Martin played here at Hesston College for me in the early years, and his two sons later came and played for me at Hesston College. But in this book, Mike was telling Eric about, he played at this small college in Kansas, and the pitcher and the catcher would trade places at the end of the game for the doubleheader. So one would pitch, one would catch, and then they'd flip-flop, which probably doesn't happen too many times this year or these days. And I think in my 30 years of coaching here, that happened maybe 3 different times where we used the same guy for pitching and catching. So it was a different time. Things have changed a lot. Back in those days, there were no athletic scholarships. There were 2-hour practice times. All coaches had other responsibilities besides coaching, many times teaching or other related responsibilities and duties. So things were different. We also had old facilities. In my early years at Hesston, we played on the old baseball field, which no longer exists, but there were no dugouts. For a home run fence, I put up a snow fence every spring. We had a dirt infield, which I dragged by pulling the drag by hand. When the weather got bad and cold, we'd sit there on those benches without any protection from the weather. So things were very different. And yet, despite the old facilities, Hess Hall, the old soccer field, baseball, our teams did well. And I'm sometimes amazed at how well our teams did with the competition we played, knowing all of these things, limited to 2-hour practice times, for instance. We used to have foundies here, and foundies classes, which were required, went till 4 o'clock. So we couldn't start practice till after 4 o'clock, and then the dinner line closed at 6. So we were really limited on how many hours we could practice. So times were different, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I have a number of people that I would like to thank and recognize. First of all, my wife Sharon, and my whole family is here. Last I counted, I think there were maybe 15 of us. We just had a new great-grandchild last week. I don't think they're here, but could my family all stand, please? Oh, they are here. I can't tell you how much I cherish their support. I'd also like to thank my parents. When I was a little kid, about age 8, I wanted to play baseball. But there was no baseball in Berlin, Ohio. But the neighboring towns had baseball, Little League. So they would drive me back and forth to practices and games so I could play baseball. They did not push sports on any of us kids, but they gave us the opportunity to play. And I can remember as a little kid walking over across town in Berlin to my grandpa Miller's house because he had a TV. We didn't have TV. And the TV was about as big as a truck, but the screen was about that big. And I used to watch the Cleveland Indians. And yes, to me, they're still the Cleveland Indians. But on Sunday afternoon, I'd go watch baseball. And there's just something about baseball that clicked for me. And I remember my parents taking me up to Cleveland to watch the Indians and walking up the ramp in the stadium and then seeing this gorgeous emerald green baseball field. That clicked, that did it for me, and I have loved the game ever since. I want to thank also the coaches who influenced me as a youth. And none of them are living anymore, but I want to mention their names. Wilbur Yoder was my very first coach as a 4th grade basketball player. Robert Schrock, Roman Gemrich at Goshen, Harold Sarge Yoder at Goshen. When I got to high school and I was a freshman in high school, I was convinced I was going to be a teacher and a coach because of these men's influence in my life. And luckily I followed through and was able to do that. I want to thank my colleagues, fellow coaches, teachers, administrative assistants, administrators who I've grown to love and cherish their friendship. We've had, at Hesston College, we've had some tremendous coaches come through in the years that I've been here, and just very thankful for them. I also want to thank the young men who played baseball for me here at Hesston. There are a few here today. I tried to estimate one time how many players came through Hesston in my 30 years, and I've estimated about 350 maybe a few more or less. But most of them have brought immense joy to me in watching them develop as players and as persons. Mark Trout is one of them. There were also a few players that brought some sorrow and some sadness because of poor choices that they made along the way. But my prayer for them is that they have learned from their mistakes and have got their lives together. It's such a joy for me to be able to connect with players on social media. I do that from time to time, but it's especially a treat to see former players here today. I want to thank my assistant coaches. Hesston College was not reimbursing assistant coaches for most of my 3 decades here. So most of my assistant coaches were volunteer. Or if there was fundraising money left at the end of the year, I would give them a token amount. But considering the hundreds and hundreds of hours they put in just out of their kindness and maybe a love for the game, love for working with young people. When you think of the hours with practices every day and games and road trips to Phoenix, it just took many, many hours. But I'm going to name these coaches. Heaven help me if I forget anybody. But in no particular order, Mark Trout, Derek Yoder, I think Derek is here, Andy Sharp, Zach Cooker, Adam Jancy, Scott Ferguson, Dwayne Yoder, Thurman Mullet, Scott Mullet, my son, helped me some, Jeff Berkey, and Jeff Berkey would have been the assistant coach my first year. Hesston College and I owe all of you a huge thank you. Thank you for your service to the Hesston College baseball program. Lastly, I'd like to thank my Heavenly Father who put opportunities in front of me and then gave me the strength and the wisdom to follow through. Thank you.
So, to start, we have a nice formal introduction here. But as I sat up here, I thought of a few things, and so it'll be a little bit informal. For me personally, to get to introduce Joel and our team today, it feels complete. I thought I'd come here and giggle, and I might cry. I was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, and that was such a great honor. But this is so much better because we have our coach and our team. And the current women's basketball team and others that were here that played basketball at Hesston, it just feels really complete. So we hope that we can honor everybody that's been part of Hesston women's basketball through what we say here, introducing Joel. But by doing that and representing many teams and people, especially those that knew Joel, as we were walking over today to have lunch, we were reminiscing again, and there's way too many stories you guys would be lost if we started in. But one of the things we talked about, and we shared this a little bit with the Hesston women's team, is our van trips and things that we would talk about that make no sense to anybody else, but they do to us. And the one that we brought up today that I had sort of forgotten about is we got into the van once, and one of the conversations was, when we go on this road trip, what if when we get back, life has gone on 20 years? Is that how it sort of goes? 20 years, yeah. Do you remember this? Did anybody get this experience with Joel? And you came back and it was 20 years later, but we had just been gone for a couple of days. What would that be like? So do you guys remember that, Sarah and Joy? Did you ever get in on that? Anyway, just have to share that. It might not mean something to all of you, but like they said, like Liz said earlier, we didn't have the music playing in the car, we didn't have cell phones. These are the ways we spent our time. So we have some pretty great memories that weren't just basketball. So it is with great pride and pleasure that we, Lisa Schmidt-Graber and Shanna Roth-Hines, stand before you today to introduce a truly remarkable individual who has made an unforgettable mark on Hesston College and the women's basketball program. We had the privilege of playing for Joel during the years of 95 to 97, and we're honored to share this moment with you as we celebrate his induction into the Hall of Fame.
Joel is someone who exemplifies excellence both on and off the court. As a coach, he brought out the best in his players, guiding them to achieve their full potential. His knowledge of the game, excuse me, this is how much he means to us. His knowledge of the game and dedication were evident in every practice and in every game. He didn't just teach the mechanics of basketball, he instilled in his players the values of teamwork, perseverance, and sportsmanship.
I put one Kleenex in my pocket, and I already gave it to Joel, so we're gonna have a challenge. Okay, so what truly set him apart was his ability to form lasting relationships with his players. He understood that coaching was about more than just winning games. It was about shaping lives and building a community. And I really believe that not just players, but anybody that interacted with Joel has had that experience. His door was always open, and his support was unwavering. Speaking of an open door, this wasn't my experience, but I've heard this, and I believe he referred to this, but he had a chair in his office, and he said it was called the cry chair, because players would just walk in and sit down, and that's where they would sit and cry and share with him, and take time to visit, and he would listen without judgment. He celebrated victories with us and stood by us in defeat, always emphasizing the importance of resilience and growth.
And this is repeating, but it's one of our big memories. One memory that stands out vividly is how on every game the players would fight to get that front seat next to Joel in the van. It wasn't about the ride, it was about the conversations. Every trip was filled with meaningful discussions, bits of wisdom, and lots of laughter. I was lucky enough to get that seat quite often, not just because of my tendency to get car sick, but those times were invaluable to have. His words of encouragement, thoughtful advice, and those small interactions with us made a big difference. He was always there to remind us that our worth extended far beyond the scoreboard.
Another significant impact was the profound love and respect that we each had for each other on the team. But it stemmed from the faith and respect our coach had in all of us. Joel saw us as individuals, each player as an individual, each of us with our own strengths and potentials. He found those in us and he drew them out. He worked tirelessly and helped us to succeed on and off the floor in life, and it continues on as we all maintain relationships and stay in contact. He made us better players and better people.
His impact on Hesston College women's basketball program is undeniable. Under Joel's leadership, the team achieved numerous successes, setting records and earning accolades. But more importantly, he built a legacy of camaraderie and mutual respect, a testament to his character and his dedication to his players.
So today, as we induct Joel into the Hesston College Hall of Fame, we're celebrating not just his remarkable coaching career, but the profound, lasting influence that he has had on so many lives. He's shown us what it means to lead with integrity, to inspire others around us, and to care deeply for those around us as well.
So today, it is with great pride and gratitude that we induct Joel Kaufman into the Hesston College Hall of Fame. You have earned this honor, not just for your achievements, but for the countless ways you've affected our lives. We are all better because of you, and we thank you for everything that you have given to the program and to us.
Everybody, Joel Kaufman.
last year when we inducted Lisa, this fell apart. This trophy.
He handed it to me and it started to come apart. So there's a picture in the publication of us like
Yeah.
this. That's why we're laughing.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for the Kleenex, by the way. My wife tried to get me to bring one of these, and I said, oh, I won't need that. Well, it's an honor to be here. Growing up, my family moved around a lot, and when people would ask me where I was from, I was never quite sure what to say, because we moved around so much, I didn't really know where home was. But when I came to Hesston College, this place felt like home to me as a student. And I remember my daughter saying one time, when I asked her about her experience at Hesston and what was it that made it remarkable or special, and she said, well, it was the first time I ever... She said it was the first place I'd ever been where I wasn't afraid to fail. I can relate to that. I had a wonderful experience as a student at Hesston, and in 1987, or the spring of 1987, I was teaching at a high school in Carruthers, California, and I got a call from the then academic dean, Jim Miniger, and dean of students, Jerry Weaver. I got a call over the intercom to come down to the office, and it was the two of them asking me if I would consider applying for and coming and I can't think of the word for it, not auditioning, but interviewing for the women's basketball position here at Hesston College. And I thought, I don't want to coach women. I was a men's basketball coach, and anyways, the more I got to thinking about it, I had such a wonderful experience at Hesston, and I thought, well, this would be a good way to get back to the Midwest and back to Hesston College, and I'll do that for a couple of years, and then I'll get back into the men's game at the high school or college level somewhere along the line. Well, that didn't happen, obviously. I discovered that it was a joy to coach women. It was very different than coaching men, and I had to learn some things along the way as a result of that, some of which were quite humorous. But my first year here at Hesston, we went 0-24, and we were probably the worst basketball team in America. We regularly got beat by 40 and 50 points every night out, and actually, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself and about how to motivate people and what do you do in situations like that when there's really not a chance of winning the game, and how do you still hang in there and compete, and what do you do to be able to feel like you've accomplished anything at the end of the game. And that was maybe my best coaching year ever, because we devised all kinds of ways in which we could feel successful at the end of the game. I remember one game in particular, we used to say, okay, we're going to try to score 50 points and hold the other team to 70. And if we did that, that was a victory. And I remember specifically one game where we were fighting like crazy, playing defense like mad in the closing seconds of this game where we were getting beat by, I think, maybe 17. And at the end of the game, the buzzer went off, and we were celebrating. And the other team just stood and looked at us like, what are you celebrating about? We just beat you by almost 20 points. And but in our minds, it was a victory. Early in the 90s, I went through a very painful divorce, and things that before had been pretty important to me didn't seem very important anymore. And particularly winning and losing basketball games, just I don't know, it kind of lost some of that. It just wasn't as important to me as it used to be, and I began to realize that if I was going to do this, I had to do something a little bit different in order to make this worthwhile and for me to stay in this game. And so I made a conscious decision to share my faith journey and life experiences with my players, try to be vulnerable with them, and encourage them to do the same with each other. I think personal growth in almost any area is in relation to the amount you're willing to risk. And if you're willing to risk a lot, you're going to gain a lot more than if you aren't willing to risk hardly anything. And some of my teams bought into that a lot more than others. And the ones that were, I think experienced a lot of growth and are still connected to each other, like this team that you're going to meet here in a little bit. One of my favorite memories of my time as women's basketball coach were the road trips, and as the girls alluded to, I still call them girls, I can't believe they're this old. The conversations we used to have were really fun and enjoyable. Sometimes I would have a team that liked to sing together, and we had a couple Canadians on our team one year that tried to teach us the Canadian national anthem on a road trip, and they soon gave up on that, because that's kind of a hard song to sing. I don't know if any of you know that song. One of the other things that we enjoyed doing was eating ethnic foods and finding new places in the different towns that we played in. And in fact, there was one town in particular that had a great Thai restaurant. And I would always put that team on the schedule just so we could eat at the Thai restaurant at the end of the game. I also tried to make sure that we were doing things in addition to just playing basketball. When we were on the road, particularly for a weekend, like a Friday, Saturday game, we had time to kill on Saturdays during the day. And so I would drag them to museums or different things that might be around that area. And sometimes they went grudgingly and complaining, but usually it ended up being kind of fun. One of my favorite memories is, actually Liz was on that team. We were in El Reno, Oklahoma, and El Reno, Oklahoma has one of the few remaining trolley cars that's still operable in the United States. And I discovered this, and I was like, hey, we're going to go down and ride the trolley car. And so I went around to the rooms and said, come on, let's go. We're going to go. And they really, it was kind of kicking and screaming to do this. But at the end of it, it was so much fun. We just had a blast having this kind of unique experience. And they still have pictures to this day of them riding the trolley car and just stuff like that. Visiting the Capitol in D.C., when we went to the national tournament with this group, we contacted the two senators from Kansas, and they gave us each an aide who took us on a special tour around the Capitol buildings. We got into places where you don't usually go on the regular tour. I remember one time in the locker room at a college in Nebraska that had really old facilities, and they had these heaters that hung down in the locker room. It was a very small locker room, and I was demonstrating something animatedly to the team about what and I didn't see the heater, and I hit my head on it, and it knocked me down onto the floor. And I remember the way that rug felt on the side of my face, and looking up and my team standing around anxiously, wondering, making sure I was okay. Along the way, we did win some games. Some of the highlights were winning 5 region championships and a trip to the national tournament in 1997. But when people ask me if I miss coaching, I tell them 2 things. I miss the relationships between my players and their families, and I miss the last 2 minutes of a close game. That's fun. I was fortunate in my time at Hesston College to have worked for the then academic dean, Mark Yoder, and presidents Lauren Schwarzenegger and Howard Keim, who gave me the opportunity to also challenge myself in other roles as vice president of admissions and then athletic director. I was fortunate in my time at Hesston to feel like when I went to work, it wasn't like a job. I never dreaded going to work, and I always looked forward to a new school year. If I have any advice to give to current students and athletes, I would say this might be profane, but quit looking at your cell phone so much and talk to each other. Don't be afraid to share your own personal experiences from your own life that might be beneficial to other people. Get to know people who are different than you, and you might be surprised at what you learn and how much fun that is. I want to thank a couple people that are here today, two former assistants of mine who worked for me for a lot of years, Joy Yoder. Joy, stand up and take a bow. Come on. And the other is Mel Buller. Excuse me. These these women all get married and then I can't remember their married names. Mel Buller Roth. And I also want to say thank you to my children, Sarah and Michael. They kind of grew up over there in Yost Center. I would drag them to practice with me as a single parent, and sometimes I would have to stop practice and say, Sarah, you get on that side of the gym, and Michael, you get on that side of the gym, and stay there until you're ready to get along. But thank you. I used to say to them, because I missed so many of their games and activities, because I had my own games and activities at the same time, and I used to apologize for that and say, look, if this bothers you, I can do something else. And they would always say, no, Dad. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. So thank you for that. Yeah, I'm done.
Well, and I thank all the individual inductees for their stories. It's just amazing contributions that have come from different generations, from many different teams all over this country, all over the world, that have all come to this place and impacted this institution and have impacted this community. Speaking of community, that's a common thread on this campus and also in athletics. At the end of the day, it's about the team, right? You want to go far, you go as a team. Individuals can accomplish so much, but it's with the team that we accomplish everything. A new element we've added this year is to recognize teams of distinction and honor them in the Hall of Fame. And so it's my honor to toss it back 50 years to 1974, and I'll let them speak for themselves. Thank you very much.
Hesston College was not prepared for this team. The town of Hesston wasn't prepared for this team. Not even the sports writer. Maybe 3 sentences every 6 weeks. We parents weren't prepared for what our daughters were going to do. Hachijuko certainly wasn't prepared for what they were going to do to them. They beat them in straight sets. Hachijuko, they scored 3 points against this team. And not even the players were prepared what lay ahead. These ladies were not campus studs. They were given no special treatment. They were students going to class just like everyone else. No training table with special meals, no free sweats, no practice uniforms, no special shoes, nothing. If you were a nursing student, you went to class just like everybody else, but you rushed back to your room, put on your scrubs, went to clinicals, came back, took off your uniform, got in your practice uniform, went to practice, and you did that day after day after day. However, as the season went on, the college, the town, families and friends knew something special was happening. At the end of the season, they were 30-0. That doesn't happen anymore in volleyball. Even as they boarded the plane for nationals, it was not an overconfident team. Here are some quotes from them. "Oh, I'm tickled to go. No, I can't wait. Oh, this is a bonus. I hope we can make a good showing. I'm really scared." It took a maximum effort of the college community, families, and friends to raise the sum total of $3,000 to get this team to Baltimore, Maryland for the Nationals. Can that be done today for $3,000? I don't think so. No, they didn't win it all. But they did something really hard to do. After losing the championship match to the eventual winner, they went back to the dressing room, probably ate a banana or an orange. They took a deep breath. One thing, they didn't change to a clean uniform. They only had one. After that deep breath, they laced up their tennies, marched back on the court, and won their final match. I'm honored today to present to you the NJCAA National Tournament bronze medalists of 1974. Congratulations, ladies. You are winners. Now, here to tell the rest of the story is a team member, Cynthia Logan-Bell, who just happens to be my daughter.
This team is not standing here without Title IX, which gave girls and women the opportunity to participate in sports. And because of that, Hesston College gave us the opportunity to play. Hesston College began offering sports for women, and Liz Hunsberger became the first volleyball coach in 1973. That year, 3 of us were freshmen, and we actually went 17-6. But there were no playoffs, there was no conference, there were no awards, there was nothing beyond that. Who knew that the following year, an almost brand new team would make history at Hesston College? A team comprised of members that had only played volleyball for 3 years. The 1974 team was comprised of 10 players. 3 of us were returning sophomores, and half of us were Hesston High School former players. I want to present our team to you, but I want to start off by mentioning 2 of our freshmen who left us way too early. Mary Hedrick, who died in 1991, and Karen Ebersol, that died in 2016. And to honor them, would you join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. 7 of us are here today, and I will have them stand up and face you and call out their names as we were known in those days. Sharon Kennel, Chrissy Orendorf, Beth Yoder, it's 50 years ago, Debbie Carlisle, Renee Rupp, Carol Jantz, did I get everybody? And myself, Cynthia Hawbaker. Thank you. Other members not able to be here with us today are Glenda Hostetler, our assistant coach Cheryl Lamb, our manager Jenny Yoder, and our coach Lynn Hunsberger. Some of us were very fortunate to have a reunion in 2019 with several other Hesston College volleyball teams that were honored, and she was able to be here at that time, and we're so grateful for that time with her before her health declined, and she is not able to be here. But she would have loved getting together with us. I want to take you back. Volleyball was a relatively new sport in this area, and it wasn't unusual to have an explanation of the game in the program to help spectators understand what it was all about. There was a glossary of terms that explained what a serve was, what a block was, what a spike was. Serves were considered, there were 3 options of ways to serve according to the program: overhand, underhand, and roundhouse. Anyone ever seen a roundhouse serve? You know, you side to the court, you throw it, and you do the roundhouse. Those were the 3 ways that you can serve. There were no camps, there was no off-season training, there was no conditioning. We just showed up on day 1 to see if we could make the team. This was the era of side-out scoring, where the only time you could earn a point is when you were serving. There were no specialists. You were either a spiker or a setter. We played a 4-2. The setter was always in the middle. And if you were a spiker on the left, you hit there. If you were a spiker on the right, you hit there. And you usually played all the way around. Very simple compared to today's game, right? However, the fundamentals, to be able to pass, to set, to hit, to block, to serve, were the same. Very few statistics were kept. Very little media information, as my mom said. Oftentimes, the little blurbs in the paper didn't even mention the scores. They might have said, the Hesston College women played well. And that was the extent of the article. So we certainly succeeded as a team and not as individuals. I don't even know if the coaches kept a lot of stats. I guess some of us figured out how many serves we had missed or how many times we hit in the net, but those numbers were not in front of us. Our uniforms were all-purpose. They were heavy, they were hot, and there was only one, and we wore them for volleyball, basketball, and track. Our all-purpose shoes were Chuck Taylors, and these were basketball. Our volleyball shoes were mustard yellow. By the end of that season, we were undefeated and eligible to play in the Region 6 single elimination tournament. And at the end of that weekend, we were 30-0, and we qualified to go to the first NJCAA national tournament in Catonsville, Maryland. We found out after that championship win that we would have been invited to that tournament regardless of how we had done. However, Coach Liz told us if we wouldn't have won, we would not have been allowed to go because of the finances involved. I just found out this weekend that 2 of our players were nursing students, and the nursing department had decided that they were not allowed to go because it was finals and they needed to stay and study. And so Liz went to that department and got permission for them to go. And considering they were our setters, it would have been pretty tough to go without them. Thanks to the extremely generous support of the college, the town of Hesston, and supporters, we raised enough money to be able to fly out to Baltimore. We were fortunate because there were many teams that had to travel there by van, including the winning team from Alva, Texas, and that was a long van ride for them. The national tournament consisted of 10 teams split into 2 pools of 5. We only played 2 game matches, and they were called games, not sets. And they just kept a record of the games we played. There was also an 8-minute time limit. So if you got to the end of the 8 minutes and the score was 13-10, whoever had 13 won. We were the smallest college there. We had about an enrollment of 500 at that time. And the next smallest team school enrollment was 1,000, and it went up to 6,000. So we were definitely the smallest. But we had fans. In fact, we had more fans than the home team. We had a Hesston College student whose family lived in Maryland, and they came. And Chrissy had some people coming, and so we actually had a little cheering section. We encountered a type of volleyball that told us we were not in Kansas anymore. This is what Coach Liz said. We ran into competition like we hadn't seen before. Eastern volleyball is aggressive, and it shocked us. At one point, Beth went to an official and asked if a certain hit was legal. It was the first time we had seen a tip. Never seen one before. So we had to quickly adjust, and we actually even figured out how to do that. After the first day, we were 3-5 with game scores. We knew we had to improve on day 2, and we did. We went 6-2. We had a 9-7 game record, and the right teams won and the right teams lost in order for us to make the Final Four. We lost to the eventual champions from Alva, Texas, but we rallied from that disappointment to being able to take third, winning in 2 games against the team we had split with the day before. And in addition, Beth Yoder was named to the all-tournament team. So that was a cherry on the top. On September 5, 1974, I kept a little diary and I wrote, "We're going to have a great team, powerhouse." And then we did, which is amazing. It was an incredible season. It was an incredible journey and an incredible accomplishment. I'd like to conclude by sharing a poem that Sharon and I wrote and was printed in the 1975 yearbook, which I had not remembered at all. Sharon, did you remember writing a poem? Okay. It's a little corny, I'm warning you, because we were not poets, but this is what we wrote. Beginning of volleyball season, organization of a new team, slim possibility of going to nationals, winning the Pratt tournament, building personal confidence in ourselves, beating Cloud for the first time, 27-0 season, Region 6 champs, a trip to Baltimore, getting defeated, tears of frustration, pressures mounting, pulling together, victory and joy, third in the nation, tears of ecstasy. In closing, our team wants to thank the Hesston College Hall of Fame for recognizing our achievements and for honoring us on what's sort of cool, our 50th anniversary. It takes us back to a wonderful time in our lives when our bodies could do what our minds wanted it to do, which is certainly not the case anymore, at least not for me. And also for a chance for us to be together and to reminisce and remember those great times. And for this, we are extremely grateful.
Your coach, Liz Huntsberger, and I and Jerry were classmates at Goshen College. I'm here to introduce the 96-97 women's basketball team who's being honored today. One of the greatest teams in Hesston College women's basketball history. The 96-97 squad stands alone as the only team to qualify for the national tournament. Finishing 18-13 in the regular season, the Larks erased a 17-point deficit in the district championship over Redlands Community College before pulling off an upset over Haskell Indian Nations University in the regional championship, punching their ticket to the Nationals in Hagerstown, Maryland. The Larks were led by head coach and fellow inductee Joel Kaufman, Lisa Schmidt, I'm going to use maiden names, and Janelle Yutzi were named to the all-region team that year. Graber, a member of the inaugural class of Hesston College Athletics Hall of Fame and team's leading scorer, was also named a second-team All-American. Members of the team included Jenna Schrock, Tara Frace, Janelle Jantz, Tasha Props, Carla Hathaway, Angie Smeltzer, Shanna Roth, Becky Nitchie, Corrine Troyer, Rachel Brisky, and the assistant coach, Phil Mason.
Thank you, Art. It's my honor to be able to introduce the 1996-97 women's basketball team that is being inducted today into the Hesston College Hall of Fame to you as a team of distinction. And it is an honor to be here in the presence of other women who have paved the way for us. I would like to introduce this team in a way that I have introduced them in my life over the past 27 years. It's a common theme, actually. When I talk about my time at Hesston and this basketball team, I often say it was some of the best 2 years of my life. If it worked into the conversation in all of my Mennonite humility, I love to point out that this team made it to nationals my sophomore year. This team was special not only because we had fun playing together on the court, but off the court as well. And making it to nationals was honestly just the exclamation mark at the end of 2 fantastic years. The unique culture of our team was greatly influenced by our coach, Joel Kaufman, his coaching expertise, plyometrics ladies, his encouragement, Tasha, you still have your license to shoot? Fantastic sense of humor, we laughed so much. And toughness, I've forgiven you for making me cry that one time. All of this mixed with reasonable expectations at a school that did not offer athletic scholarships at the time was second to none. And speaking of scholarships, I'm pretty sure we were the only team to arrive at nationals as a team that did not offer athletic scholarships, but did, due to some pretty fantastic connections, we arrived in our 2 Learjets. And just as a quick refresher on how we got to nationals, at regionals, Becky Nitchie with the last second shot in the last 7 seconds, I wrote in my journal, you say 4, to win the game. Next came districts, and if you will remember with me, we had to give up our spring break. They didn't even let us stay in our dorms. We had to move to a stinky, uninhabited boys' CMOD, KC CMOD. And at the end of the spring break, the game time arrived. We were behind, as Art said, by 17, and came back to win 55-52. Turns out that giving up our spring break was worth it after all. We were off to Hagerstown, Maryland for the national tournament in our 2 Learjets. We played 2 games at nationals. Both were hard fought, the first one losing in double overtime, the second only losing by 3 points. Turns out we were competitive even at the highest level, but losing in the first round of nationals did not and has not dampened our memories of our team. Our team had a dynamic energy about it that continues even to this day when we get together. There is still so much laughter. Thank you so much, Hesston College, for this honor today. We are grateful. Thank you, Joel. Teammates that we still enjoy, and memories to last a lifetime. It is an honor for our team today to be inducted as a team of distinction into the Hesston College Hall of Fame.
Okay, I will make my comments brief because you guys are probably tired of seeing me up here. I could talk for a long time about this group of young women. They were the most unselfish group of players I've ever coached in my life. They didn't care who got the credit for things. They got along better than any team I've ever coached. They were the kind of team that when I called a timeout and said, we have to do this, they would go do it. Janelle talked about being down 17 in the first half against Redlands in the district tournament. And I had called a timeout with about 6 minutes left on the clock in the first half, and I said, we have to cut this lead to 10 by halftime if we're going to have a chance to win the game. So we did. In the region championship game, with 4 seconds left on the clock, the other team had the ball to go the length of the court. We had just scored. They took the ball out of bounds, and I called a timeout quickly. And in the timeout, I said, we have to steal the inbounds pass. We don't. If you have to foul to do it, but we have to steal it. So Lisa stole the inbounds pass, and then Becky hit that famous shot from the elbow to win the region tournament. But it was a real pleasure to coach these young women. I have never met a finer group of people. And if you have a chance to interact with them, you'll see what I'm talking about. So anyways, I was really blessed to be a part of this team. Thank you.
We have a few thanks to give before we end, especially thanks to our SID, Nick and Larry Bartle, who created a Hall of Fame display, a touchscreen TV in the lobby of Yost Gym. If you haven't seen that, go take a look at it. It has some pictures and some memories for each Hall of Fame inductee and team. Especially like to thank Assistant AD Andy Sharp for a lot of coordination for today's event, and you all for coming and being with us. I'd like to close in a moment of prayer. If you can, stand with me and we'll pray. Lord, we thank you for the many memories that we have of Hesston College, for the community that is present. I ask that you would be with our current athletes and help them develop community in this coming year and enjoy the joy of the journey. We thank you for the many examples we have of faithfulness and hard work and love for each other. And ask that you would bless the rest of our alumni weekend together. We pray in your name. Amen. You're dismissed.